Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome back to the K, aka Khalif YouTube channel, aka K Day. Yeah, I hope that y'all enjoyed the last two videos. Um, Tonight, I just got back from the movies. I went to the movies with my homegirl, and we went to see this movie called The Lost City at the Dine-In Theater, y'all. It was at the Marina Six, child. Anyways, um, that theater is very expensive for no reason. Okay, I don't know why, but well, I do know why. You know, the luxury and all that stuff of kicking back, ordering food. But all in all, I'm glad I got to get out and have some girl time. You know, you got to get out and just live life sometimes. Although we were kind of disappointed. The movie was It was whatever. It was a rom-com. It was kind of corny and cute, but it was whatever. So, sorry I have gum in my mouth, y'all, but I don't want to spit it out, okay? Um, so, with all that being said, thank you for coming back to my channel. And tonight, I wanted to talk about self-love. I know this is corny. I know this is kind of like, well, it's not corny, but I think that this is a topic that I don't really see a lot of trans people really talk about that often. I feel like we we talk about our transition a lot, which is great. We have our timeline, we have all those things like that. But I want to really, really, truly talk about self love and what that looks like, and how difficult that can be, and why some of us struggle with that, especially if you are a trans woman, trans woman of color, especially if you're a black one on top of that. So, for me personally, self love has been something that I have had to sort of practice. It honestly is a daily practice, especially in the world that we live in, right? In the world that we live in a society, in a world that tells you that you are not enough, that tells you that there is no space for someone like you, that constantly pushes you out in macro and micro ways. Um, for someone like us, it starts with usually where we come from, right? It usually starts, if we're not blessed, with a supportive family or a family who's willing, to educate themselves. It starts with that, right? You might grow up a certain way, or you grow up in a family that is religious or so forth, or they just have one way of thinking, which most people commonly do. Your everyday person typically isn't LGBTQ. They're typically not even that progressive. Just being honest with you. Yeah, we do live in a time now where there's much more education out there now, and people are a little bit more open-minded. So I don't want to sound like too much of a negative Patty. But typically, what I'm trying to say is that there's still more work to do, right? So it starts at home. And if we're not given those tools, which most of us aren't, even if we're, cisgender or cishet or cis heterosexual, right? Some people like that aren't even given all the tools to self love. Self love is something that I feel like for me in my life so far, it is something where me being a woman in my late 20s and stuff like that is something that I really have had to practice, especially with being trans. Like, that's something that I feel that we don't even have the luxury of doing, because we spend a majority of our lives trying to survive, trying to transition, trying to build a comfortable life for ourselves, with also trying our best to find these places of community and trying our best to find our footing, right? And sometimes it could really hurt. It could really hurt, and it's not something that is easy. And that's the first point that I want to acknowledge with self-love, is that it's something that's not easy. Number two is that it's something that takes time. Number three is that you might want to consider some form of therapy, especially if you come from a background. For me, being black, like, I'm a black girl from Fresno, California. I didn't grow up with, a silver spoon in my mouth. I didn't grow up with opportunities given to me. I grew up in a family with predominantly men. I grew up in a very hood family. You know what I mean? Like, I grew up in a family where, I dealt with a lot of physical abuse. I dealt with parents who had substance abuse and substance habits and things like that, and mental health issues and regular everyday stresses that adults have, right? But, I've seen a lot and dealt with a lot. And I think that as a child, I began to internalize a lot of things, right? And it took a toll on me growing up. I didn't even realize I was carrying so much self-loathing and self-hate, and honestly, until I was like 18 or 20 years old, and I was like in college, looking at, trying my best to see a therapist because therapy was something that I did believe in. And even for the black community, that's something that the black community is typically against. Now we're in a time where finally black people are somewhat willing to have a conversation about mental health or seeking therapy or seeking someone to talk to. But at that time, I was open to it because I was like, look, I have a lot that I feel. I have a lot of trauma. I have a lot of pain that I'm carrying. I have a lot of things that I've been through in my life, and I just want to be happy. So what can I do to be happy outside of me possibly, succumbing to the stuff that my parents succumbed to, right? Or me just being depressed my whole life because I grew up in an environment that did not accept me, where I wasn't told that I was loved. I wasn't told that I was worthy, right? So 3 is that. 3 is therapy and trying to figure out those resources, but it's not always that easy for girls like us. And the reason why is because we trying to just get by and survive, And that could be really difficult, and it's not that easy. And even with self-esteem, I think that's another thing with self-love that we don't often speak of, but I feel like I'm rambling at this point. What I want to say, though, is that self-love for me, it took me therapy. It took me writing. It took me faking confidence when I didn't have confidence. It took me like believing in myself and telling myself that I was worth more. And this doesn't mean that I still don't struggle. I think that a lot of the girls, they act like they ain't feeling it and they act like they ain't going through shit. No, we still go through stuff. We're so human at the end of the day. And it's hot in here. I'm sorry. And we get caught up. You know what I mean? Like I feel like we just get caught up in the day-to-day life and trying to keep up with the Joneses and stuff like that, and we don't focus on ourselves, or we lose our focus. And men, it's so much that like trans women deal with, you know what I mean? And it's just, I think this experience could be really heavy on our souls sometimes because we're constantly challenged in so many ways, but also on the inside of us having to build our self-esteem and our self-confidence as women alone, in a world, once again, that tells us that we're not women, right? Or, you know what I mean? And here's the thing about that piece, right? I think that a lot of people, when they hear trans women say that we're women, they think that we're saying that we're cisgender. I know some of the girls might interpret it that way. First of all, I can't speak for the whole community, but I just want to say that most of us are aware that we're trans. We're aware that we're different. You get me? And I think we're just trying to figure this shit out and figure out a way to make this experience a lot smoother for us, because it can be something that has a lot of challenges. I'm so sorry I have a gum in my mouth, but I really don't want to spit it out. But with all that being said, self-love looks like to me, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my points here. What it looks like to me is you taking accountability and also protecting yourself and honoring yourself, right? So taking accountability. When you make mistakes, take accountability of that. When you don't have all the answers, take accountability for that. It's about you focusing on self and guiding self and constantly asking yourself questions, constantly holding yourself down, knowing that you are responsible for you and nobody else is, regardless of how difficult it is for you, right? You have to, and this applies to everyone across any spectrum, you know what I mean? You have to figure out a way to fight through that difficult darkness in your life, and it's something that is not easy. It's not easy at all. But this is why I commend girls like us, because we're strong. Like, we're strong as fuck, because it's hard. It's hard putting yourself out on the line. I mean, even me with having this channel, I'm sitting here like, can I contribute to the conversation? Like, is anybody watching this shit? Like, you know what I mean? But it's the thing of, with self-love, I think that one thought that I always say in regards to a trans person self-loving themselves is, why did you transition? Like, one thought that comes to mind for me is, why did you transition? And I often tell people, like, I'm living my life as me, and by me living, that is a form of self-love. That's by me by me living in who I am, and going after my dreams and going after things and not basing everything on my gender identity, but just trying to just live a happy life and still being this person and still existing. That's me self-loving myself, right? You know, it's me giving myself a chance to live and be happy and move around and embrace myself. You know what I mean? And just that act of transitioning alone, regardless of what comes with it, for me, that for my journey, for me holding myself down, that was one thing that motivated me, where I was like, this is not who I am. I'm not a boy. I'm not a man. I cannot see myself living as that and being what everybody tells me that I should be for the rest of my life. Like, that doesn't make me happy. That makes everybody else happy. According to everyone else, my life would be better, right? Or according to my family or whoever, people who believe that if you're born one way, you're that way, whatever, right? I was supposed to just be a straight, cisgender, heterosexual man, right? And you just follow that, life is easier. Wasn't for me, sis. And I believe that there is truth in who all of us are. I mean, I'm not gonna debate about on this channel. I'm not gonna debate about like, oh, are trans women really women or not? We are women, but in regards to back to the topic of self-love, what I'm sharing with that is like me transitioning alone. That was a something that I looked at as a form of self-love, because that was me being happy. That was me putting myself first above anyone else, regardless of what my parents said, regardless of what my family said, regardless of the judgment that I faced, regardless of the family that I lost and the opportunities that I probably lost by transitioning, right? And not living a lie. Because for me, I was like, you're lying to yourself if you don't go for it. This is who you really are. Once again, we just have to recognize the real with our experiences as trans people. And, like I said with that, for me, it took me years of therapy to realize that I hated myself growing up because of how difficult it was being black and being being effeminate, right? And then knowing that I'm really a woman this whole time, like knowing that that's who I am, and the world just not seeing that shit, and then me not having a supportive family to say, hey, go ahead and do you, sis. We got you. We love you, right? Not having that foundation brought me to a place where growing up I did self-loathe and hate myself, honestly, because I was just like, how could I be here? Like, why would the higher being bring me here? Like, why would you give me this experience that is filled with so much pain, that's filled with rejection, that's filled with constant questioning, me constantly like trying my best to be happy, but the world's saying it ain't gonna happen, it's not possible. That caused me to self-hate a lot, honestly. And I'm so thankful for therapy. I'm telling y'all, like, I know that that's not for everyone, but for me, in my experience, it really helped me deal with that particular trauma. And I know trauma is something that is so loaded. Everyone is talking about fucking trauma. I'm like, every time I go on social media, that's everyone, childhood trauma. So they blame everything on childhood trauma. But I feel like in this particular topic of self-love is something that is so important. It's something that will ground you at night. And it can reflect itself in different ways. It can reflect itself in you taking a look at yourself, doing the self-inventory as a woman, knowing that you're a woman. Asking yourself, what is it that I could do to be more comfortable? How can I get more strength? Who can support me? Who can I trust? How can I be a better person? Because I feel like some of the girls, I'm gonna have a moment here, some of us trans women are very catty. We're very fucking catty. We're not nice to each other. We don't want to support each other. We don't trust anybody, but that's a result of us being hurt. You see what I'm saying? Luckily, we live in a time where we have more representation, and even with that representation, nobody's perfect. But we live in a time of more representation where now you see the girls living their life authentically. Nobody's perfect, right? But we're all out here and we're all figuring it out. And some of us are gracious, some of us aren't, but some of us are gracious, and some of us are showing each other love and helping each other and I know for me, it's just so beautiful to see that because I remember growing up in the community and not being embraced, and now I'm finally at a point in my mid to late 20s where I'm being embraced a little bit more by other trans women, and that's something where we have to help each other in that. You get me? And this doesn't mean that all of us have to vibe automatically because we are in the same community, but it's like, we understand each other firsthand. So we got to figure out what can we do to trust each other. Sorry, y'all. That's my little timer. I didn't want this video to be so long. But those are just some of my musings on self-love. And I just want to make sure I hit every single point. Yeah, we have to embrace each other. We have to embrace each other and stop being so catty, do the self-work on self. Not just rely on our identity for clout. You get what I'm saying? Clout is nice. Don't get it twisted. Clout is fucking nice. Hell, I want some clout. You feel me? To help me have a more comfortable life. You know what I'm saying? But, take that clout, but also make a positive change. Be genuine in how you move and stuff like that with others as well. Because how you treat other people is a reflection of self. I'm not saying that you have to get along with everybody or whatever, but you don't have to get along with everybody. This doesn't mean that you have to be the kumbaya chick, but it will help you, right? If you're a trans woman out here right now, or a woman in general, and you're a catty as fuck, and you're not a girl's girl, that's not gonna help you get anywhere, sis. You gotta look at you, regardless of how you look. And that's another thing with trans women specifically, I think, and cis women. I feel like we just get so caught up in looks and who has this, who has that, just over minuscule shit versus just working on ourselves and putting ourselves first and focusing on us and what we got going on. But see, all of that is a reflection on that internal work. You got to work on you. You got to work on you. Don't be fighting nobody. You got to go fight your own demons, child. You can't be out here fighting other people, But yeah, I'm rambling at this point. But those are just some of my musings on self-love. Listed out a few steps, accountability therapy, recognizing yourself, reflecting on what you've been through in your life to bring you to this point, doing self-inventory. If you don't have the resources, you could read self-help stuff. You could try your best to take care of your body. Watch the people that you hang around with if they're not positive influences for you. Rather they're LGBTQ or not. Not everybody is a positive influence for you. So if you don't mesh with certain people, that's fine. But you also have to just move a certain way, and also just try your best to surround yourself with positive vibes, positive energy. And I know that sounds so corny. I'm not the first or the last to say it, but that's all I got. Those are some of my musings on self-love. So thank y'all for tuning in tonight for this particular video, and I'll see y'all next time.